So it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, As-salatu wa-salamu ala Sayyid al-Anbiya wal-Mursaleen, Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima tu'allimuna wa zidna bi fadlika ilman wa ta'liman innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. Okay, it is alleged, and God only knows the truth. Notice how he prefaces his statement. It is alleged. I am not, he himself is not lying, because he himself is saying, they say this. I don't know if it's true or not. That when Abdul Muttalib encountered the opposition of Quraysh when he was digging Zamzam, he vowed that if he should have 10 sons to grow up and protect him. Right? What does that mean? We spoke about this last week. Pre-industrial revolution world, sons, tribe, children. What does it tell us?
Sons are important because they protect you and they help with agriculture and whatnot.
Right. So if you take, for example, let's take Deen out of the picture, okay? Just take, for example, you're Fallahi, Muhammad?
No, I'm saying.
Right? So you take Fallahi culture, there's logical reasons why society, it's why the just the why the economic and physical reality of life would make people misogynistic, right? And prefer boys, right? Are boys preferred in your culture, Muhammad?
Yes, sir.
Right?
I'm
Like if
not
you have a
even.
daughter, you have two daughters now, right?
No, with
So
each
everyone's like, oh,
one.
inshallah, each one, oh, inshallah, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
good, what's it called? Nice, what's the phrase? Uh, nice
عقبال
try.
الصبي.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, inshallah. So where does that come from, right? So, it is true that economics and the life shapes your culture and shapes your ethics, right? So if you're just like, this is reality, like you're growing up, who is gonna defend you? Bunch of boys, right? We're gonna have 10 sons, and these 10 sons are gonna protect me. They're gonna fight, they're gonna do this and do that, right? So that is a reality. So right, so when the Prophet said, somebody who has, what is it, two daughters or three daughters, I can't remember the hadith now, that they would have this place in Jannah because it's a sacrifice. Like you're not benefiting. You're not on a worldly level, you're not benefiting, right? So it's very different for us in a post-industrial revolution world to say, oh, you're sexist, you're that. It's like because it's a kind of a different kind of thing. And interestingly, here in Malaysia, in Indonesia, they have this whole thing about I don't quite understand it exactly, but the whole thing about like you protect your sisters. Like the oldest brother, his job is to like protect the sisters and like look after the sisters. Like you don't marry off your daughter really. Like like the husband's almost like a stud, but he is there like so like it's like Muhammad, he's looking after his sisters, and then Muhammad's wife is being looked after by her brother. That makes sense. So this idea like you have to look after these people, right? And so there's truth in it, right? There's a truth in it. So here he says like I'm gonna have these sons, right? This is the picture. Like you have to have sons. I need to have a bunch of sons, right? So they protect me. Bani Israel. Notice that, right? Bani Israel, the sons of Israel, right? The sons of Sayyidina Yaqub. He has a tribe. He has an usba. وَنَحْنُ عُصْبَةٌ. Like we're a gang, right? This is the whole thing. If Allah gives me this stability in life, right? So it's like having 10 sons is like having a degree in a job. Like if Allah gives me a job, if Allah gets me through med school, I will do this, right? Like all things are set, you know? If I get my US citizenship, I'll do this, right? Things like this is the picture that we have to understand, right? He would sacrifice one of them to God at the Kaaba. Afterwards, when he had so notice again why is this in his mind? Because sacrifice is shifting from a so initially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells people to do things that are innately that are theocentric but are um, actually anthropocentric. What does that mean? Something that's theocentric but it's actually anthropocentric. What does theocentric mean? What does theo mean? Theology, theocracy,
It's centered with the point of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
right? So like it's all about Allah. Theocentric is all about Allah. It revolves around Allah. So theocentric ethics are ethics that are good because God says so, right? Irrespective of whether it helps people or not. But does Allah tell us to do things that doesn't help, that doesn't that don't that doesn't help us? That don't help us? Sorry, that doesn't. Does Allah tell us to do things that don't help us? No. So the way that we function in ethics as Muslims is we're theocentric. It is good because Allah told you that it's good. Okay. So you say polygamy. How is that good? So it's good because Allah said it's good. Killing an animal, like that's just cruel, right? It's good because Allah says it's good. It's good to eat sheep. It's bad to kill pigs. It's bad because Allah said it's bad. Bad. But in reality, does Allah do things that harm us? Does Allah tell us to do things that harms us? No. So if you think at the idea of sacrifice, the idea of sacrifice is you are sacrificing, you're giving up your animal, right? You had a camel, you don't have it anymore. You have a cow, you don't have it anymore. You have what's it called? You have a sheep, you don't have it anymore. You are sacrificing, you are losing, right? But it's for the benefit of whom? When you sacrifice a sheep or a cow or a goat or something, who benefits?
You do?
Who benefit? Okay, which humans benefit?
The
The
people
poor, right?
around.
The poor get to eat, right? So notice in his mind, things have shifted, right? That things used to be theocentric, okay, and accidentally, meaning non-essentially, anthropocentric, meaning they actually all center around helping people. And then it shifts to just theocentric, right? And this is a normal system in religions. Religion is there to help people. It's supposed to help people. You don't do things to help people, you do things for the sake of Allah, but accidentally, meaning non-essentially, it's supposed to help people, right? Like you abide by the Sharia, you will live a happy life. It'll be easy for you. The dunya will work out, right? There are rules there to help people. Don't, commit zina, you know. Who was it? Tucker, what's his name? Tucker Carlson? What's his name? What's his name? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, that's his name.
Yeah, right. He was talking about something. He was talking about I can't remember what he was talking about. So he's saying like there are certain things that like they're very evil and they destroy people. And if you play with them, it destroys people. So he says, for example, like, he says, I knew couples that used to, for example, sleep around and they would be like they're okay with their spouse sleeping around. And then it doesn't actually work, right? So like zina, it's not because you don't have your spouse's permission that adultery is bad, is it will actually destroy your relationship. Like it won't actually work. People who live that kind of life, it doesn't actually work. So they actually will be miserable. Like if you commit zina, you will actually be miserable. That's how it works. So rules are tools to protect fools. So the deen is there to help you. The reason why we don't commit zina is not because it would harm us. The reason why we don't commit zina is because Allah doesn't want us to do it. But accidentally, as a second thing, all of these rules help us. So notice the shift from rules that help society to rules that are pointless. You're now at the time of the Prophet, before this time, the Prophet, religion is not there to help people. Religion is like weird. So there's things like like offering blood to the Kaaba. So you shifted from feeding the poor to offering blood to the Kaaba. You shifted from slaughtering camels and giving the camels to the poor to eat so that they can survive to shift to offering your son, right? Aztecs, human sacrifice, right? Appease the god or the gods by human sacrifice, right? And so it becomes really weird, right? And this is what we see in all religions, right? Judaism is a Sabbath focus. You need one day just focus, right? Stop working and focus. And then become something really weird, right? Like, I don't know if you can ask an Orthodox Jew, can you watch TV while on Sabbath? He'd probably say, yeah, right? Similarly, you come and ask me, right? And you say, hey, Sheikh, can I watch TV when I'm on i'tikaf? I'm like, yeah. So then it's like, well, you ask one of the Salaf, and they were like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not i'tikaf, is it? Like, you're not, it's not, the spirit is not there anymore. So what I'm trying to say is the spirit of the deen disappears bit by bit as a religion decays. Things don't add up anymore. The point of zakat is not zakat anymore. The point of hajj is not hajj anymore. The point of Ramadan is not Ramadan anymore. And it becomes this weird thing that you would consider slaughtering, sacrificing your son. And so the Prophet ﷺ had to correct many of these things. Um, the concept of, for example, al-ajr ala qadr mashaqqa, right? That there's more reward with more difficulty. But that doesn't mean make your life difficult, right? So you would have these things where people, like this happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, somebody made a vow to stand in the sun. So like I'm just gonna cause myself pain. So there's a big difference between walking through the midday sun to go and help somebody and getting more reward from Allah because it was in midday sun, right? Uh, 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 and actually causing yourself pain by standing in the midday sun. It's not the same thing. So the Prophet had to correct many of these issues, that the deen is not extreme, the deen is there to help you, right? And that it's not there to harm you. You do things for the sake of Allah and you're willing to sacrifice anything, including your son, for the sake of Allah, but you'd never actually kill your son, or you'd never, like, I don't know, cause yourself pain, or and the deen is there to help people. It's supposed to be there to help people, not to ruin things. They can't press the elevate buttons, right? Allahu Alam, right? Because that's considered work. Okay, so and so this is important, right? And also throughout history, throughout Islamic history, you will find people that like mini Jesuses, right? People like coming out to correct this whole thing, right? People like Imam Ghazali, like Ibn Taymiyyah, right? On different levels where they see something that's off, you know, where like the what's it called? What's it called? That nice balance between letter and the spirit, letter of the law and the spirit of the law has become off. It's like it's weird. It doesn't actually make any sense anymore. Things are not making sense. Let's, for example, polygamy. What's the point of polygamy? To build society. Well, what if polygamy is destroying your society? Like you find so polygamy is just an excuse for your husband to cheat on you. You know, he just ran off with the secretary. It's like, what? How is that the goal of the Sharia, right? Like that's not the goal of the Sharia. And there's many things. I can't go on a whole rant about this, but there's many things in the Sharia where the letter takes over and the spirit just disappears, and you ask what happened to the deed, right? And it's something we observe throughout history, and this is an example of it where here we see somebody, religiously murdering somebody, right? He's For the sake of Allah, he's going to murder his son, right? So anyway, he had made this vow that if he should have 10 sons to grow up and protect him, he would sacrifice one of them to God at the Kaaba. Afterwards, when he had 10 sons who could protect him, he gathered them together and told them about his vow and called them to keep faith with God. They agreed to obey him and asked what they were to do. He said that one of them, that each of them must get an arrow, write his name on it, and bring it to him. So remember that their faith is based on there's no revelation. So they have fortune tellers, they have oracles, they have divining arrows, and I can't remember what else they have. I think they also use birds, right? Like the word tatayyara is called. There's a word for it. They used to like you fly the bird. If you fly the bird right, that means this. If you fly it that, it means that. They use birds to do things. Or you cut open a bird and you look at its insides, and that will tell you something about the future. These are these things they're using. So divining arrows. As they did, he took them before Hubal in the middle of the Kaaba. Right, this is the biggest statue in the Kaaba. The statue of Hubal stood by a well there. It was that well in which gifts made to the Kaaba were stored. So notice gifts made to the Kaaba. What does that even mean? Like, what's the point? Like, so for us, when we quote unquote give gifts to the Kaaba, like on Hajj, we're feeding the poor, right? That's what we're doing. Every single time you're feeding the poor, right? So people actually are helped. It's just, it's a of whereas here a gift to the Kaaba, what does that even mean?
Does it mean like the sacrifices?
Yeah, but the point is, what I'm trying to say is not what does it mean? Like, what's the point of it? For us, we have this word hadi, which is related to the word hadiyah, gift. So it's like when you give a gift to the Kaaba, you slaughter, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you give to Allah, you're giving to the poor. That's how you give to Allah. They're just giving to the Kaaba itself, right? And again, look at our mosques today. Luxurious mosque, right? Luxurious mosque. Does it need to be that luxurious? You know what I'm saying? It's actually a sign of the end of time, right? So they have luxurious, cathedrals and things like that, right? But you have luxurious mosques. Like that's not really a priority, is it? Okay, what about people who are, the cost of the cost of that mosque, of building that mosque to the poor? You know what I'm saying? May Allah forgive us. So there's a lot of things that are off, right? A lot of things that are off. Now, beside Hubble, there were 7 arrows, each of them containing some words. One was marked bloodwit, which was bloodwit is blood money. When they disputed about who should pay the bloodwit, they cast lots with 7 arrows, and he on whom the lot fell would have to pay the blood money. Another was marked yes, and another no. Right. So this is like what's it called? Not voodoo doll. What's it called? What's it called? Board? The I can't remember the word. That the board you used, Ouija board? No, it's called
Yeah, I think it's the Ouija board.
Ouija board. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's like that, right? They acted accordingly on the matter on which the oracle had been invoked. Another was marked of you, another mulsaq, another not of you, and the last was marked water. If they wanted to dig for water, um, they cast lots containing the arrow wherever it came, right? And interestingly, in Arabic, when you say to dig for water in the wrong place, okay, when you dig for water, it's called bi'r madhluma, madhluma. So dhulm in Arabic is not the opposite of adala. Dhulm in Arabic is the opposite of hikmah. Hikmah is to put the right thing in the right place at the right time in the right way. Dhulm is to put the right thing in the wrong place, or in the right thing in the right place in the wrong way, right? Or the wrong time, right? So when you do something right at the wrong time, you do something right in the wrong way, you do something right to the wrong person, right? It becomes dhulm, right? Very interesting. Putting something in its wrong place. If they wanted to circumcise a boy, which they did, right? So this was something unique to them. Again, this is from the pact of Sayyidina Ibrahim, right? That they are circumcising their boys, or make a marriage, or bury a body, or doubted about someone's genealogy. They took him to Hubal with 100 dirhams and a slaughter camel, and gave them to the man who cast the lots. Then they brought near the man with whom they were concerned, saying, "O our God, Hubal, this is A, son of B, with whom we intend to do so and so. So show the right course concerning him." Right? So they would say to the man who cast the arrows, cast, and if there came out of you, then he was a true member of their tribe. And if there came out not of you, then he was an ally. And if it was mulsaq, which means mulsaq, like added to, then he had no blood relation to them, and he was not an ally. Where yes came out in other matters, they acted accordingly, etc. They used to conduct their affairs according to the decision of the arrows, right? Al-Azlam, not Al-Azlam as in Zalame, Sheikh Muhammad, right? Al-Azlam meaning these are the divining arrows, right? Abdul Muttalib said to the man with the arrows, cast the lots for my sons with these arrows. And he told him, so imagine the difference, right? Imagine you live in a society where like arrows decide fate, like who gets married, who doesn't get married, what's right and what's wrong. They are truth. And now you don't believe in any of that, you know? Now you talk to Allah because it's a totally different world, right? So it's like you're challenging people's way of verifying reality. That's what Islam did. It it changed it. So it's very, very difficult. It's a huge problem. Like it's not a small thing. And he told him of the vow which he had made. Each man gave him the arrow in which his name was written. Now Abdullah, right, the son of Abdul Muttalib, was his father's youngest, and he and Az-Zubayr, right, so Abdullah ibn Zubayr and Ali ibn Abi Talib, right? So we can see, right? So the Prophet ﷺ is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and his cousin is Ali ibn Abu Talib, right? And his his Adil is Abdullah ibn Zubayr, right? Adil is, there's two women, two sisters. You're married to one of them, and he's married to the other one. So the Prophet was married to Asma binti Abu Bakr, to Aisha binti Abu Bakr. Aisha's sister Asma was married to Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Sorry, this is not Zubayr ibn Awam. There's somebody else. That's not. This is Az-Zubayr. This is another Zubayr. That's not the same Zubayr. That's Zubayr ibn Awam. That's Abdullah ibn Zubayr ibn Awam. Right? That's a different Zubayr. Anyway, this is another Zubayr. And Abu Talib. Anyway, so this is the father of Sayyidina Ali. Were born to Fatima binti Amr ibn A'idh ibn Abd ibn Imran ibn Makhzum ibn Yaqadat ibn Murrat ibn Ka'b ibn Lu'ay ibn Ghalib ibn Fihr. Right, so they go back. I don't know what, however they are like third, fourth cousins. One. It's alleged that Abdullah was Abdul Muttalib's favorite son, and his father thought that if the arrow missed him, he would be spared. He was the father of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the man took the arrows to cast lots with him, Abdul Muttalib stood by Hubal praying to Allah. Notice, like you stand next to Hubal, but you pray to Allah. Right? Then the man cast lots, and Abdullah's arrow came out. His father led him by the hand and took a large knife. Then he brought him up to Isaf and Na'ila, the two idols of Quraysh that were slaughtered their sacrifices, to sacrifice him. But Quraysh came out of their assemblies and asked him what he was intending to do. When he said that he was going to sacrifice his son, they and his sons said, "By God, you shall never sacrifice him until you offer the greatest expiatory sacrifice for him. If you do a thing like this, there will be no stopping men from coming to sacrifice their sons. And what will become of the people then?" i.e., this is a problem. Then said Al-Mughira ibn Abdullah ibn Amr ibn Makhzum ibn Yaqada, Abdullah's mother being from his tribe, "By God, you shall never sacrifice him until you offer the greatest expiatory sacrifice for him. Though his ransom be all our property, we will redeem him." Quraysh and his sons said that he must not do it, but take him to Hijaz, for there was a sorceress there who had a familiar spirit, right? This is called a familiar, right? The word familiar we don't use in the same way as a spirit. A familiar for us in Western culture is like an animal, like a toad or a cat. That's your familiar, right? So, oh no, it's the same. I know. So, but what it is in Western culture, like you'll see there'll be a witch and she'll have a cat, but the cat is her familiar. Like the cat is like the physical form of that spirit. That's what it is, right? Or she'll have a toad. That is that's the physical, the jinn basically is taken on that form. Okay. And he must consult her, right? Then he would have liberty of action. If she told him to sacrifice him, he would be no worse off. And if she gave him a favorable response, he could accept it, right? So the question is like, what is right and wrong is kind of a bit weird, right? Like, are you trying to ask her to ask Allah? Like, it's almost like there's this nebulous thing called right and wrong, like nebulous good. Like, who are you trying to like? Whose acceptance do you want? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no actual personal God here. It's like the right thing to do. So you go and ask this lady who is connected to a jinn. Okay, what's the jinn gonna do? He's gonna tell you nebulously, loosely, what is the right thing to do. But it's not going to tell you what Allah wants you to do. Notice that? So they have these things that are kind of related to Allah, but they're not Allah Himself. Like, it's almost like Allah is not the source of what is right and wrong is not doing what Allah wants. It's something else. Does that make sense? Like, Allah is kind of almost like a person. Like, let's say, for example, the Ubaid, he's our big brother, right? And we all respect him and we're all nice to him. But he doesn't necessarily know like how we should behave towards him. Like, he doesn't tell us what to do. So we have to kind of like find out like the right thing to do. So it's kind of interesting, right? So now when you come with Tawheed and you say good is what Allah tells you to do. Don't go and ask some oracle who has a jinn. Don't go and ask a divining arrow. Don't go and do this. There's one thing, there's revelation. Revelation tells you what Allah wants you to do. What Allah wants you to do is good. What Allah does not want you to do is bad. Right? You talk to Allah. Right? You try and find out what Allah wants. You try and please Allah. Like, it's a very different kind of world. Very, very different. So in their world, Allah is relevant, but He's not the thing. There's no tawheed. Right? He's not the cause of everything. He's not the samad. He's not the thing to which everything goes back to. Right? Does that make sense? And so I think very much like in our Western culture, right? Like, God is there, but it's not really like, like we kind of just think of thing like Allah's like God is like part of the discussion. If you believe in God, He's part of the discussion. I don't think most Westerners, would appreciate like making God the only discussion, right? Let's say, look at France. I think like 30% of France is Catholic or more, right? And so, like, I'm sure many people in France do care about God, but they don't want to make it the center. It's like you don't base politics and laws on religion. That's just you don't do that. God is one of the many things out there, if He's there at all, right? So that's what's happening here. Wallahu a'lam. So they went off as far as Medina and found that she was in Khaybar, so they allege. So they rode on until they got to her, and when Abdul Muttalib acquainted her with the fact, she told them to go away until her familiar spirit visited her. So she asked him. Exactly. So he's like an important person on the bus. That makes sense. Like, there's all these things, like he's important. God is not unimportant, but He's just not Akbar. You know what I'm saying? He's just not Akbar. Or he's Akbar, but there are many other considerations as well, right? Absentee father, yeah. And also, it's a very important thing. Shirk, whenever you get into idolatry, the gods always become far away from you. Like, imagine like you worship Thor. Okay, you worship Thor. Like, he's not with you, is he? And he doesn't care about you. Like, it's a totally different, if you appease him by waging war or being successful in war or something, like he's just very distant, right? So whenever you start dealing with idolatry and like idols, it's always like everything is very distant from you, whereas Allah is with you. He's with you wherever you may be. It's a totally different concept of what God is. And also becomes very cold, right? It's just not, and then that allows you to be cold, right? So I mean, it would be really interesting. Like, Benjamin Netanyahu, does he believe in God? I don't know if he actually believes in God or not. But if he does, it's a very weird God, you know? it's almost like it's a bit like this. It's like it's not really, it's not a moral God. It's like it's just a power that's supporting Israel, and you know and sometimes you kind of have to take things into your own hands, like because God's kind of going to mess it up, something like that. I don't know how they would think about it. It's just very strange. Like it's a very strange way of thinking. I remember this rabbi saying this. He's saying, like this student, this Jewish man. He asked this rabbi, like, does God answer the prayers of Muslims? And they said, yeah, it does. They say, they observe circumcision, they observe hayat, they dress properly, they avoid haram, stuff like that. They eat the halal, they say Bismillah and things like that. In fact, they're more religious than we are in some ways. They have more reason to be answered. And I was like, that's such a weird thing to say. Like for us, like, does Allah answer the dua of a kafir? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not scared that you're making dua. If a zalim, for example, like I'm in the right and you're in the wrong, and you say, oh Allah, you make dua against me, I don't care. Your dua is not going to be answered. I'm in the right, you're in the wrong. But they kind of have this other way. It's almost like God doesn't know, or I don't know what it is. It's almost like a kind of like a dumb power, or I don't. It's kind of strange. It's very, very weird, right? Anyhow, so they rode on until they got to her, and then etc. When they left her, Abdul Muttalib prayed to Allah. Notice this interesting connection. Like, why are you going to her then? But he's praying to Allah. He went to Hubal, but then you pray to Allah. And when they visited, the next day, she said, word has come to me. How much is the blood money among you? They told her that it was 10 camels, as indeed it was. She told them to go back to their country and take the young man and then the camels. Then cast lots for them and for him. If the lot falls against your man, add more 10 camels until your Lord is satisfied. Right? So basically, you keep spinning. If it lands on the kid, then you add another 10. And then you do it again. And you basically keep upping the ante. So eventually it's going to land on the camels. But that could be after 110 or 2 10s or 3 10s, etc. If the lot falls against the camels, then sacrifice them in his stead. For your Lord will be satisfied, and your client, your family member, not really client, it's not a good word translation here. Client is somebody who's not from your tribe, but they become part of your tribe through lineage like that. This is not your client. This means your clansman, not your client. So they returned to Mecca, and when they had agreed to carry out their instruction, Abdul Muttalib was praying to Allah. Then they brought near Abdullah and 10 camels, while Abdul Muttalib stood by Hubal praying to Allah. Then they cast lots, and the arrow fell against Abdullah. They added 10 more camels, and the lot fell against Abdullah. Right? And so they went on adding 10 at a time until there were 100 camels, when finally the lot fell against them. Quraysh and those who were present said, at last your Lord is satisfied. So notice you're trying to find out, and in fact, many people will do this in reality, right? You're trying to find out what Allah wants based on the arrows, right? So, like that's not how it works. Even istikhara, right? Like I made istikhara, you made istikhara, and the marriage failed within 6 months. So you're like just confused, you're disillusioned. Like if I did istikhara, then how was there no good in it? So how do you answer that question? How was there no good in the marriage?
We don't know. Maybe the failure of the marriage is protecting us from something that we don't see.
Exactly, right? So good is not that you got money out of it or that everybody was happy, is that did you turn to Allah? Maybe, for example, your du'as in those 6 months of your marriage when it was like really shaky and you didn't know what's going on, it was really hard. Every single day you woke up in the morning like, yeah, Allah, this is really hard. I really don't know what to do. And that was the best change in your life. And then your second marriage worked out well, right? I made istikhara, went on a trip and even got sick, right? That's not the criterion, right? That's not their criterion. So a lot of people will do this. Oh, I went in the marriage. There's lots of barakah in the marriage, the wedding. That wedding was very mubarak. What did you mean? Meaning everybody was happy. That's not a criterion. Maybe everybody was happy doing the haram. I don't know, right? Everyone was on one page doing the haram. Like I don't know. That doesn't that's not the criterion. So many people they will make up criterion like that. And that's not how it works. That's not how it works. I don't know. So they'll they can, and they work in this same. Many Muslims they work in this same kind of. I'm not saying they're mushrikeen. I would have been not saying that, but I'm saying they work in this same kind of world of like craziness. There's no logic to it, right? Um, like I opened the Mus'haf today, and the first letter was Fa, and then my son, this guy came up to me and wanted to marry my son, and his daughter's name was Fatima. So like, aha, it's like that's not really how it works, right? You know. So also istikhara is istishara, right? Before istikhara is istishara. You didn't do istishara. You didn't follow the rules of Allah. So should I take this job or not? Look at the pros and cons of having this job, right? Should I marry this person? Look at the pros and cons of that person, right? Should I do this? Pros and cons, right? That's the there's lots of things where like your feet are on the floor. So these people their feet are not on terra firma, right? They're kind of like the way that they think is very kind of crazy. Unfortunately, a lot of Muslims are like that, right? Like the way they think is kind of like crazy, right? They don't use the Sharia, and their religion is very romantic, right? And there's lots of romantic things about Islam, meaning what is right, romantically follow it, right? Like this is right, go ahead, right? Doesn't matter. But ascertaining what is right is based on you use the mind to interpret revelation, right? You use the mind that's what you have this tool, you have Arabic language, you have the mind to interpret revelation. It is not bay aql. It's not like without the aql, you know? There's many people like, somebody asked a question yesterday, I think you were in the class, Obaid, right? About like keeping the dog in the house. It's like, well, I'm in the middle of Alaska and it's -40 and my dog can't stay in my house, so therefore it dies outside. It's like, there's bay aql, it's like it doesn't make any sense. It's like, how could Allah allow you to have a guard dog, but then force you to kill it? You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't make any sense. Or I don't know, there's like certain scenarios, and I guess even myself, I asked a question like that, right? Like I remember seeing somebody throw up, right? Somebody was on a bus and they threw up during Ramadan, right? So then it's like, well, what do you do if you throw up? You got to rinse your mouth and spit it out, but he couldn't really do that. So I asked one of my teachers, and he's like, Fried, like, what else is he supposed to do? Like, you're on a bus and you just threw up on the bus while you're fasting, right? Obviously, you don't want to swallow stuff, but like, you honestly doesn't have anything else to do. So they have certain ideas like you do nothing, like I don't know what it is, right? I mean, again, don't need to pick on Pakistanis, but like the Pakistani marriage, right? It's like, oh, you're getting beaten up, but it's okay, be patient. I'm getting beaten up by my husband, but be patient. Like Allah expects you to just get beaten up on a regular basis and you just be patient. Like that, you think that's how the deen works? Like like being, domestic violence is okay. Like it's not okay. And you, sister, are part of the sin because you're accepting it. Like you actually have to call the police. You got to get out of it. And you, family members who just like okay with it. And again, it's not just Pakistan and many Muslim countries. We have the same mentality. Like it's a kind of bay aql. Like no, you're not using the mind at all. And it's not the mind over revelation. That's shaitan, right? Shaitan puts mind over revelation. I'm made out of fire. He's made out of clay. I'm better than him. It's not saying that, but the Sharia is there to help us and does certain things, and there's certain things, and it doesn't have it's not illogical, and it's not there to harm us, but Allahu Alam. So anyway, this is the best that they had, and they eventually had this, and they said, Alhamdulillah, this tells us now that your Lord is satisfied. No, by Allah, he answered, not until I cast lots 3 times. So he continued, he wanted to do wara'an, be careful, right? So they did, and each time it fell against the camels. So they were duly slaughtered and left there, and no man was kept back or hindered. So notice who's heard this story for the first time? Anybody? So the story we've all heard the story, but notice the preface. What did he say? It is alleged. Right. This whole story is really interesting. It's great, but it's all alleged. I don't know if it's true or not. Allahu alam. You know. So it's very important to understand that that none of this actually has to be true at all. Right. So we have to, whenever we're looking at reality, looking at the world or looking at revelation, we have these lenses, and you can see between fact, information that is most likely correct, information that is possibly correct, and possibly not correct, and most likely incorrect, and definitely incorrect. Right? This is how we read texts. Like I'm looking at this and I'm like, that's a nice story. I learned a lot. That helps with the context, but it might not be true. Right? Go ahead, Sister Sarah.
Yeah, I had a question because I don't I can't remember where I heard this, but I heard that the all of the forefathers, direct forefathers of the Prophet ﷺ, that they were all monotheist. So I was wondering if that is true, like how do you reconcile that with this story?
Well, number one, this story is not reliable, so it kind of so I can just ignore it. So
So would,
any shirk number one, any shirk that is possibly here can just be ignored because it's not reliable.
so for example, like the sorceress and all of that, we would just
Yeah,
not
yeah.
believe.
So that's the thing, is like what you'll see is, so this ability to like weigh up things. So it'll be like, so is this useful as a story? Yes. Is this part of Aqidah? No. Okay. There we go. And then do we, is that 100%? Do we 100% hold that as fact that the progeny, the ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ was always free of shirk? That is a majority opinion, right? But then the problem is the father of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So some say no, that was his uncle, right? That's a strong position, arguably the stronger position that he was the uncle, not his father. But there's other positions as well. Wallahu a'lam. But the point is, this is what I'm saying. So Sarah, we had another scenario was what was it? That the Prophet was considering suicide. It's gonna come in this book somewhere, I think. So you're like, what? Prophet was considering suicide? And you're like, oh yeah, it's in Bukhari. It's like, where in Bukhari? Oh, it's in the title of a section of Bukhari where Bukhari quotes Az-Zuhri, who died 40 odd years after, who was born 40 odd years after the Prophet, and he said that the Prophet was considering suicide. So we say, well, that's not authentic. I don't need to explain that. Right? I don't need to explain it. Right? I have other clear evidence in the Quran and Sunnah against that. So like, why would I don't need to deal with it. Right? So basically it's like there's this category of possibly correct. It is useful. It's not useless. As stories, as anecdotes, gives me completion, right? Like reading the Bible, it's great, it's interesting, but it's not reliable. So anything in the Bible that you look at as like crazy, is like, yeah, it's just crazy, ignore it. Read something in the Bible, makes sense. It mentions a place name, that would make sense. It's this far from that place, yeah, cool, But it's in the same category, right? So we're not treating it, we're not using, remember also the quote from Imam Ahmad, right? So Imam Ahmad, he said, if you're talking about these kind of stories, Ibn Ishaq is great. And he himself, Ibn Ishaq, is saying it's a story. I don't know if it's true or not. But he's saying that Ibn Ishaq as a narrator is great for these kind of stories, i.e., that kind of genre, that kind of utility. Are you using it for a story? But he says when it comes to halal haram, we want somebody like this. And I think that one description is he like put two thumbs up, or like he clenched his hands. Like we want somebody who's solid. So in Imam Ahmad's mind, there's stories that shape your world. There is halal haram, which change halal from haram. Like there's evidence that you can actually do this or you cannot actually do this, right? like they're going to shift this balance from halal and haram, which is pretty important. And then there's aqidah, which is based on fact. So these are these three different levels. You know, there's a story from Ibrahim ibn Adham, and it's like, is that story sahih or not? It doesn't really matter. One of the Salaf, there's a story, it's a motivational story. It's not a big deal. You know, I have a story from my grandma. It doesn't really matter if you know who my aunt is and whether she's a reliable narrator or not. It doesn't matter. It's just the story, right? So you put things in categories of story / supporting evidence, you know, and then next level then is halal and haram, and the next level is aqidah. There's these three levels. So we're not saying it's useless. We're just saying it has limited utility. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank
And I would argue that the Sira is one of the most useful things. As long as you understand it, the limitations of its utility, it's really useful because it gives you the feeling. Like there's so many concepts here that I think are really important. Like you're reading the Quran through the eyes of the Sira, it makes so much more sense. For me, like this whole discussion, right? Of like, you know, you've made up these things and oracles and all this stuff. Like it helps make sense. Otherwise, I'm reading the Quran in a vacuum. It makes sense, but it's like it would make way more sense if I had all these stories in the background. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? But not that it's going to fundamentally carve up the Quran, right? You know, what do I mean by carving up the Quran, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitab mawquta, right? Indeed, the prayer was and ever will be obligatory on the believers at fixed appointed times. And Allah does not talk about joining prayers in the Quran at all. Along comes a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, Muslim, the Prophet joined prayers. Hadith is sahih. So certain scholars, not all scholars, but certain scholars will say, yes, I can literally carve up the Quran with this hadith. You know, like it says all prayers at all times and fixed, but then actually this is an exception. You know, like I'm willing to do that. It's strong enough to kind of go against the default nature of the prayer times, right? Like I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to do that with a story from the Sira like this, you know, and we'll see stories that don't make sense and we'll see stories that are wrong. It happens. Does that make sense?
yes, thank you.
Inshallah. Okie dokie. I need to run actually. So the woman who offered herself in marriage to Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib, right? Here's another scenario, right? So again, you're a Western woman, right? This happened to me. I'm late for something else, but it's important, right? Here, you're a Western woman. You can hire and fire. You have been in multiple job interviews. You have stood behind in front of the board. You've shouted at the CEO, but yet for some reason you can't propose to a man because it's just too awkward. Because culturally it's too awkward. Here it is in the Jahiliyyah, in a misogynistic society where women do not inherit and they are inherited as property, and a woman feels like she can actually go up to a man and say, will you marry me? Fast forward, Khadija radiallahu anha, right? She hears about the Prophet ﷺ, sees how he is, indirectly, albeit, but she does initiate. She sends somebody to the Prophet ﷺ saying, hey, are you thinking about marriage? Would you consider marrying so-and-so? Right? But I remember sitting with this lady, you know, she's, I don't know how much older than me, very capable individual, right? They could run organizations, but she was too shy. She had to ask me privately if I knew somebody for her to get married to. And like she was like, don't tell anybody that I asked you. It's like, well, why not? Why not? Mashallah, so and so, congratulations. It's been a year since she got a divorce. Alhamdulillah, that didn't work out. She's very capable. Everybody knows her. She's a religious woman. Who would like to marry her? Bid starting at, whatever, right? I mean, she's not to be, auctioned, but it's kind of like, it's a shame, right? So this is a useful story. It helps me. Let's say if I was a woman in the West, like, yeah, this is a useful story. If she can do it, I can do it. You can go up and ask the guy and say, hey, can I talk to you after work privately? And he's like, okay, I can have a conversation like that. That's not impossible. That's not an impossible conversation to have. Yeah, it is a bit awkward, but it's not impossible. Or you could ask via somebody else, right? It doesn't have to be that sisters are there like rotting on the shelf because it's too awkward, you know? It shouldn't be like that. I got to stop, inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.